more perspective on South Africa's economy and Ramaphosa's meeting with Biden. Joining us now is Julian Pecquet. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, Julian, thanks very much for joining us. He's a Washington, D.C. and UN correspondent for Africa Report. Welcome to our program. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Let's just get right to the point. What's the significance of this meeting between Ramaphosa and Biden right now? Is this a case of the right time and the right place? It has been 8 long years, and especially the Trump administration certainly didn't do the continent of Africa a whole lot of favors in terms of the way they look at the United States.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. You mentioned the strategy up top, and this is coming as the United States is trying to shift away from the approach of the Donald Trump administration and really try to make friends on the African continent again. And as your reporter noted, South Africa is the biggest trade partner. It's also a democracy, one of only 8 fully free countries in sub-Saharan Africa, according to U.S. NGOs tracking this. And so it's very important for the United States to have a good relationship with this country. Unfortunately, a number of things have been problematic. You mentioned, this legislation on Russia.
Mm-hmm.
The South Africans have been adamant that they are non-aligned in this conflict, and this came up again during the president's visit. If you'll remember, last year for a month, the United States stopped travelers from that country after the South Africans helped identify a new COVID variant, and they really took that very poorly with good reason. So there have been a number of hiccups in the relationship, but it remains a very, very strong and important one.
Let's talk about Biden's new reset measure. How is that going to be any different, the sub-Saharan strategy, than we've had in the past?
I think it's mostly about the rhetoric and the framing. I mean, they are going out of their way to want to change the United States into the preferred partner, the partner of choice. So the idea being, we don't want you to choose between us and China, us and Russia. We want you to come to that conclusion on your own that we are the preferred partner, free market economy, support for democracy, et cetera. So that's really sort of where they're coming from on that.
Let's talk about the trade between the United States and South Africa as well. And there is no question China has made huge inroads in many nations throughout Africa. Can the U.S. play catch up at all there, or is China pretty much cornered the market in its relations with so many nations?
Well, that's a very good question, right? So China's been the top, it displaced the United States as the top trading partner with the African continent back in 2009, and since then it's been way on the top, and the U.S. has declined. And so there's a lot of rhetoric coming from the White House that they really want to boost this. They have a whole bunch of programs in place. They're going to release a whole bunch of new money during the summit in mid-December. But the private sector isn't following. The private sector in the United States is still very wary of the African market. I mean, if you remember, the Chinese made a killing with cell phones, mobile phones on the African continent. They saw a huge market, a young population, and the American companies saw, people that don't have a lot of money, didn't think that was a viable business for them, and now the Chinese are really on top of that. And you see that in a whole bunch of different areas where Chinese companies are very nimble, very much able to, create these lower cost products and really meet that demand. And, that's where the Americans are going to have to step up if they really want to penetrate that huge market.
Julian, a couple of things. When Biden sat down today, one of the things he really wanted to focus on was climate change. And if you think about what South Africa has been through, I remember just a couple of years ago when they got down to the 0 water days and now the flooding. Clearly, South Africa is very concerned about climate moving forward as well. Has the U.S. found a friendly partner there?
Well, that is one reason why they're having the president of South Africa at the White House, right? Is because it's considered maybe the main partner on climate in Africa as the United States tries all these different measures. South Africa relies heavily on coal. There's $8.5 billion proposed to try to get them away from coal from Western powers. The Americans are supposed to put $1 billion towards that. The South Africans are now saying that's not enough. I believe the president said they're now looking at 38 billion. President Ramaphosa, that's what's needed. So, they're trying all of these different measures on energy. to try to make sure that the South Africans can move away from coal towards greener energy, but at the same time realizing that there's a huge demand for energy on the African continent. And now we're seeing this change in rhetoric, which is, it's more geared towards fairness,
Right.
And making sure that the Africans have access to electricity that they need.
Julian, one final question. Queen Elizabeth's death, it has renewed a debate returning diamonds to South Africa. What are your thoughts on this debate, and what kind of issue do you think it is in South Africa right now?
Oh, I don't know what I could tell you. I don't think that's something that the Americans are gonna weigh in at, certainly, but it certainly seems that a lot of African countries are re-examining their relationship to the crown, to the Commonwealth. It's a complicated issue, right? Because at the same time, it was earlier this year, 2 new African countries just joined the Commonwealth. So you see them sort of split between, this anti-colonialist rhetoric, but also this understanding that being part of this, UK-led Western grouping is beneficial to them. I mean, there's money involved, there's relationship building. So I think it's a complicated sort of a balancing act for them, frankly.